Book 3. The Council of the Ages.
Chapter 6, Part 1.
Dire news came from Bursary, fears of the Golden Lady are certain, the return of the Hell is imminent. Our Lord Dermidil has summoned all the high priests of the 7 temples to be given to them the jewels. We must leave for Isthmir as soon as possible. Isthmir Expedition. Author, High Priest Shermiel. While in the council, things had not advanced much. For 2 hours they were presenting all the components of the council. It was a boring formality, the nobles kept their composure stoically. The audience not so much, Gosberg dozed undisguised. After the presentations, the chamberlain announced the entrance of the high priestess Liniata the Great, representative of the god Label, who according to old legends was the one who built the palace of the heavens. Greetings, O great lord, my Mistral King 18. All but the great king of the elves rose in respect for the high priestess, and then the priestess recited a prayer of blessing and protection for all present at the Council of Ages. The great king thanked the priestess for her blessing and thus the council began. Without further ado, Ferdinand de Bussy stood up in the middle of the room. The great patriarch in the white robes did not dislike being the center of attention at all. Great lords, we have gathered here today because there is a threat looming over Shanaris and we all have a responsibility to make a decision to end it. The great hall was expectant at the magician's words. Slowly he advanced to the great table to stand in front of the king of the elves. To find out what exactly the threat consists of. First we have to go back to just before the age of the damned, King Dermidil II, great hero of the elves. The last descendant of the house of Roham, he was the one who defeated the demons of the Black Abyss with the help of the god Eliban. No one flinched, since this story was already known to all, even the children were told as a bedtime story. Shortly after his return to Turkhemak. No one knows the exact cause, most likely a punishment from the gods, was when the terrible curse of Eliban occurred. Affecting King Dermidil and his great city, bringing down the elven kingdom of Erebenini. Thus began the Age of the Damned. What the magician said was something totally known to everyone and that is why no one doubted his words. But what few know is that Dermidil's great victory came in the farthest area of Shanaris, Itzamir. The magician advanced to the large board next to the central table and pointed to the huge map. It was a representation of Itzamir. Once the most beautiful place in Shanaris, Itzamir rivaled even the palace of the heavens in which we stand. Now it is a desolate and forgotten place for most of the inhabitants of Shanaris. The vast majority did not even know about the existence of the continent since in many maps its presence was omitted out of superstition. No one wanted to know anything about the demons and their kingdom. For many it was just a rumor at best. Only those who studied and knew well the legends and history of the First Era knew that its existence was real, so Ferdinand had to make a brief introduction about the history of Itzamir. At the end of the First Era, the inhabitants of this powerful realm allied themselves with the demons. It was there that the demonic wars took place. The gods after defeating the demons created a huge wall to isolate the cursed continent for all eternity. Right after that, they decided to leave Shanaris. The whole room stared at the map the magician pointed to. This map is very old, from the middle of the First Era, when Itzamir had not changed sides. We know this because, although it contains many details, the Great Wall does not appear. Unfortunately we don't have such a detailed map of Itzamir after the demonic wars. Other mages placed a smaller map next to it that pointed to a huge wall in the interior of the continent. In this other map we can see the enormous wall, called the Wall of the Gods. And we can say that Turkhemak is only a crude imitation. In addition, the continent is surrounded by rough seas that cause numerous shipwrecks. Apart from the fact that no one in their right mind wanted to return to a cursed place, this caused Itzamir to be forgotten by almost everyone. No one except Dermidil's expedition has entered the interior of the kingdom. The great hero defeated the demons and since then they have not posed any threat until now. Ferdinand's assistants followed the magician's speech and now placed another new sheet on the board. It was a drawing of Eliban's 7 jewels, each with its name. Arion recognized his brother's blue jewel, and which he always wore hanging. Everyone was attentive to the magician's explanation. We have to go back to the last decade when the triumph of Eliban was activated again by the traitor of Phaedorus Magnus. This magician wanted to use the jewel to perform a ritual forbidden by the gods. And 5 years ago the curse of Turkhemak was removed and the triumph of Eliban returned to its place of origin thanks to its high priestess. Since the end of the Age of Heroes there was no high priestess of Eliban. Everyone focused their gaze on Arion, although Ferdinand wasn't really praising her. These two events have caused a change in Itzamir, surely linked to the fact that jewels are important for the containment of demons. Since we believe that they were created to defeat them, something that my great colleague Anenko will tell us later. Ferdinand waited for the other 2 magicians to add to the board another new illustration of a building located in a depression surrounded by large staircases that formed a circle. The building had a simple design, but a huge black door as big as the entire construction stood out. Ferdinand held his breath. Well, here we have the last stronghold of the demons of the Black Abyss in Itzamir. They call it the Black Gate. It is where the definitive victory over the demons took place. But apart from the gods, only one warrior came to this place. Ferdinand suddenly fell silent. It was when the other magician, Anenko the Wise, stood up and with his ungainly air continued with the story, leaving the great patriarch in the background. 2 years ago, reading old books from the magnificent library that exists in Nadir Sera, the great capital of Khan's empire. Fortunately, I came across a copy of Evil Legend of the Amber Knight. They are the memoirs of a great human warrior who had fought in demonic wars. The Amber Knight was fortunate to meet the Knight Ellen, the only survivor of the last battle and who fought alongside the gods at the Black Gate. The hero related what happened to the Knight Amber, who wrote it in the book, where it is told how during the fight against the demons, the gods did not achieve a definitive victory. They could only drive them into the Black Abyss and used Eliban's jewels to close the black door. Anenko showed everyone the book where the story was written. The revelation caused a stir in the room. Originally, jewels were a weapon to defeat demons. Arion was beginning to feel guilty. At first I thought it was a simple story without more, but in this case it is different, since it had the glyph of the 2 black demons written down. A glyph that could only be written by Ellen himself, since no one else was there. Ferdinand spoke again, interrupting Anenko, who would surely start beating around the bush. In addition, Ferdinand was eager to be the center of attention again. Anenko was researching this ancient story without knowing that a few years earlier a mage of my order, the White Robes, was collecting everything that could be saved from the rubble of the great tower of our order, before its construction. The magician found by chance a book that belonged to the cursed Phaedorus. The book was where he wrote his research on necromancy. It was a kind of work diary. Phaedorus had summoned the demons a few times to try to gain power for his dark desire to achieve immortality through them, with little success by the looks of it, since the demons cannot easily access this plane. But the interesting thing is that according to what was written in the diary, the demons told him that the soul eaters with their screams could eliminate the interdimensional barriers that contain them. We do not really know what Phaedorus intended when he summoned the soul eater. We only know that in this way they managed to enter Shanaris at the beginning of the demonic wars, when the gods had previously defeated a devourer of souls that had been summoned by the Queen of Itzamir. Worryingly, we discovered that the demons gave Phaedorus the spells needed to summon a soul eater. The magician, seeing that the following pages referred to a series of forbidden spells, followed the rules of the Great Council and informed me, her superior in the order, of her discoveries, and I immediately brought them to the attention of the council. Silence in the room again, since no one knew what relationship these 2 findings had. It was not easy for us to find the relationship. But thank the gods, Anenko was in Tripulia at the time, and I called him to consult him about the writings of Phaedorus. We immediately realized the relationship. Many had studied the effects of the screams of the soul eaters since Phaedorus' betrayal. We discover a pattern. The first defeat of the soul eaters sparked the demonic wars. Then, Dursabel, the Golden Lady, defeated another Soul Eater, causing King Dermidil to have to go towards Itzamir to defeat the demons again. And we had suffered 2 cries from a Soul Eater. From what we had ascertained, it was certain that those 2 screams would have disastrous consequences. At the urging of Anenko, who advised us to consult with Shinari's protectors, the Council of Tripulia decided to communicate with the Great King, expressing our concern about the facts we had discovered. The Great King closed his eyes, confirming Fedora's words. It was then that he spoke in his delicate and harmonious voice. And they were right, it's not a known fact, but at the beginning of this era, on the fateful day of Turkamak's curse, Queen Meriva had a vision that caused her to have a fit of madness. The High Priestess believes that she received a direct message from the Great God Label. We don't know what she saw, but it was something so terrible that it drove her crazy, and she only managed to end her suffering by suicide. However, before he died, he wrote the following prophecy in his own blood: after the priests return to the cursed city, when the 2 moons cross again with the great god watching, the black gate will be opened again in Itzamir, from which the 2 black demons will emerge to cover all of Shanaris with a black shadow. For a moment he was silent. The Great King seemed sad to remember such a bitter death. I ordered those words to be engraved on his tombstone so that he would never forget them. And now we see that they are about to be fulfilled.